All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Odd Podcast at 2.0. My name is Brian. I am your host. Thank you for joining us on a happy Friday afternoon. I am honestly looking forward to this weekend. I hope you are as well. Hopefully, you can sit back and enjoy your favorite podcast and you don't have to work too hard this weekend. Today, we are talking about finding guests for your podcast and how we can get this done. And I think this would be a maybe not as pretty of a show with a video on, but a video show nonetheless. So today, finding guests. This is something I guess I've been doing it long enough to where it's like, sure, I can find a guest about pretty much any topic there is. And when people are like, oh, I'm having a hard time finding a guest to talk about this, I ask them, do you belong to any of the Facebook groups where guests are there looking for podcasts to be on? Are you unfamiliar with how to utilize LinkedIn to find guests? There are all kinds of awesome tools out there that are free where we can find guests. So just the other day, we have a show that delves into the financial world. And he's like, I need to find an economist. Within 5 minutes, I had 5 notes sent out to economists that I found on LinkedIn. If it's a professional job, LinkedIn is the place to go to find that economist. Now, yes, we have to vet them. We have to make sure, they know what they're talking about and that they're right for the show. But nonetheless, 5 minutes worth of work, 5 emails out, done deal. And they'll come back and I'm sure we'll find one out of the 5. People love to talk about themselves, and that's what a podcast interview allows an opportunity for, is to do just that. Talk about yourself or their self or their book or their job or their program or their course or their whatever they have to offer. And not everyone is a yes, but if you dig hard enough, you'll be able to find somebody. And, to that note, people are like, oh, it's so hard. You're all aware I was in the Marine Corps. I understand what hard work is, and sitting down with a laptop or a phone and pushing a few buttons, I do not classify as hard work. It can consume a little time, but you have a plan, a process, a workflow in place, and it's easy to do. So I challenge you, think of that off-the-wall guest you would love to have that you haven't found yet, and hit LinkedIn or hit Facebook. Go to Facebook and search podcast guests and search for groups. And you're going to find several, and they're free to join. And you can just jump on. Hey, I need a guest to talk about aromatherapy. Boof, they're there. I need a guest that can talk about emergency management. Boof, they're there. It's hard not to find a few options when you're searching, and you'll probably spend more time diving into them before reaching out to them than you will having just reached out to them. So when it comes down to it, utilize these tools. If you're not active on LinkedIn, get active on LinkedIn, especially if you have a professional podcast. If you are not active on Facebook, it's good to have an account for these types of issues when they arise. Especially if you're creating online content. If you're creating online content, you should probably pretty much, have a social media account on every platform. It doesn't have to be podcast related. It doesn't have to be your professional account, but an account to where you can gain access to these groups and pages and reach out and have conversations with people. That is, the nuts and bolts of it. So finding guests isn't that difficult. We probably field 10 to 15 emails a week from PR companies trying to get the people they represent on shows. So they kind of come to us. I kind of vet it out, and I send, an inquiry out to the host that guest might be a good fit on. And 50% of the time they're like, yeah, great, thanks. And before too long, they're interviewing that person on their show. So it's kind of cool to see that process. But don't be hesitant about using social media to find guests. Again, vet them. Make sure it's not some clown jumping on your show to get their 5 minutes of fame, but vet them. A couple of things I want to talk about really quick. The first is the Sich Radio podcast pitch competition. Signups end next week. If you are thinking about starting a podcast or have a podcast idea that you would like to pitch, please visit sichradio.com. Link is in the show notes below. Podcast pitch competition. You're going to give us a little bit of information. We will see you here on the 30th, and or submit a video pitch to us. There are a couple of time limitations, so be sure to check out that page. All the details is there. Sichradio.com, podcast pitch competition. You will see a link on the homepage. If you're on a mobile device, you can go to events and you will see the link there to the podcast pitch page. Secondly, and lastly, before we can go home and drink a beer, is Feed Drops. Feed Drops is a show that I co-host with Linz Florin from Growth Network Podcasts out of Los Angeles. And we are getting ready to launch our first NFT project. So if you are in the podcasting space or the NFT space, maybe you dig both, check out feeddrops.com. There's some information on the website there about it and some links to where you can get first in line. But we will be dropping the Founders NFT on the 1st of August, which is a Monday. And we're super excited about it. And we're excited about it because it's giving back to those in the podcasting space, those shows we feature on the show, and nonprofits within the creative industries communities. So it's going to be it's been a great project to work on thus far. I've never gone down this road before. We've created some cool art to represent all the benefits that art allows the holder to have, and super excited about that project. So if you are interested in, again, podcasts and or NFTs, check out feeddrops.com. That is feeddrops.com, where Linz and I feature 2 shows a week that we've never listened to, heard of, and we share them with the world to help them get discovered a little more. And number 2, it's interesting listening to podcasts that normally wouldn't be listened to by these ears. The last episode I featured was about goth, and I actually learned a lot about the goth community, listening to that show and preparing the notes that I did for that episode. So it's been a great show to work on. All right, everybody. I think that is it for the week. Appreciate you listening to I'd Podcast That 2.0 here on Bullhorn FM. And check us out, sichradio.com, for all your podcasting needs. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend.